Information about the world of running, inspiration to fuel passion and excellence, and ideas for making connections and finding community. You're listening to A to Z Running. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the A to Z Running podcast, where we help runners thrive. I'm Andi.
And I am Zach. And this week, USA 25K champion Mckenna Morley joins us, sharing her take on life beyond and around the sport of running. And stick around after that for the latest from the world of running, including the New York Marathon, USATF 5K championships, and an interesting article about training changes for Olympic bronze medalist Molly Seidel. Very interesting indeed. Before anything else, pause. Head to AtoZrunning.com. Look for the word follow. And then find us on the places you most like to find your content. We're likely there as well. A to Z Running.
Very good. Well, thank you to our sponsor this week,
Aletha, the creator of Hip Hook.
Today I have the hip hook, which is an amazing tool for those of you who have hip flexors issues. I have lots of hip flexor issues, so this was a great tool for me to try out and to share with all of you. As many of you know, I had to withdraw from the US 25K championships because I was having such bad hip flexor issues. Now, one of the reasons I was having such a hard time is because the iliacus and the psoas are really hard to get to. Those muscles are really deep and it's not easy to release them. And so this tool was something I was very interested in trying. Now, the hip hook is specially designed to target those areas to help you run better, to feel better, to have more mobility, and to help with some of the other aches and pains surrounding the hip flexor region. And I have found a significant improvement in my sleep and then in my ability to rehabilitate. So this is the hip hook. Check it out.
well, we know that life isn't just about running. I know we
What?
talk about talk about running quite a bit here at the A to Z Running podcast, but of course we want you to be a thriving runner. That's why we have topics that are going to help you process through how we can balance life well. And that's why we have Mckenna Morley on the show today, because she's not only a pro, but she's trying to balance this life that's going to help her in the longevity of the sport and also to do her best while she's living in this pro running scene. So about our guest, Mckenna Morley, you've most recently heard us talk about her because she won the USA 25K championships in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mckenna was a 7-time All-American at the University of Colorado, where she also holds the 10,000 meter record on the track.
Ooh, gold at Colorado.
Yeah, I know. Like legends come from Colorado, which include Mckenna. Mckenna ran at the U.S. Olympic trials in the 10,000 meter run, and she took on the road racing scene soon thereafter with 4th at the U.S. 15K championships, 2nd at the 20K U.S. championships, and then that brings us to the first place finish at the 25K championships. We are eager to continue to see Mckenna's career unfold, and it is exciting to see such a young runner look at her career with such a holistic mindset. So let's talk to Mckenna. Hi, Mckenna. Welcome to the A to Z Running podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, thank you. You're like on the road. You're in the airport right now. I'm not in studio right now either. And I just love it because we're a couple of ladies making it work, getting things done. I absolutely love it. You've like taken a whole, like you have the figurative meaning of taking off, you're, flying, and then the literal, because you just won the 25K championships. So yeah. Congratulations are in order. That's first up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It was so fun because I got to see you in person, and it was absolutely incredible from the sidelines to be able to cheer you on and to see you running through the streets of Grand Rapids and just crushing it. So congrats again. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So today, Mckenna, there's so many things that we could talk to you about. You're an obvious expert in the sport of running. In fact, you're coaching. Can you tell our audience where you're headed off to right now?
I'm going to Portland to go to the Big Sky Conference meet. I'm a volunteer assistant coach at Montana State University with their cross country team. So very excited. But yeah, I'm here alone right now. I'm on an earlier flight. So we have a little layover.
Perfect. Great. Fitting us in. Appreciate it. So there's a lot of things we could talk to you about. You have expertise in the coaching aspect, but of course, running, and you've done roads, track, cross country. You've done it all. So there's so many things we could unpack with you. But today specifically, as I've read up on you and snooped a little bit and read different articles and listened to podcasts that you've been on, I've really appreciated your messaging about your life and how you have a thriving life that you're building for yourself right now as you've taken on the profession of professional running. So I guess my first question is, how did you decide to do professional running and land where you are right now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just started running when I was in sixth grade, and I kind of ever since then, when I got into high school, I was really excited about it. And I was like, oh, like I heard about professional running and I was like, what is that? And when I realized that it was something you could do for like a job, I was really excited about it. So even like throughout college, I kind of had in the back of my mind that if I was able to, it would be amazing to become a professional runner. So when I got the opportunity to, after I graduated, it was kind of like a dream come true. Definitely just like so fun to be able to have your job be the sport and the thing that you like love so much and you do every day is just awesome. So I'm so lucky.
That's so cool. And you have the 10,000 meter record at CU, which is amazing. Yeah. So at that point, were you like already, were your wheels turning and how you were going to do the professional running scene and what life might look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, with that was really exciting. That was a huge breakthrough race, that 10,000 meter race for me that year. And that definitely did get me kind of thinking. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to be a professional runner or like where that would take me. But I definitely knew like I wanted to try and, have some good performances in colleges that could set me up for being a professional runner. And then wherever that took me, I would be excited.
Mm-hmm. So where did that take you?
Montana, a couple of places, but Montana now. Yeah.
And how did you choose Montana?
So I'm originally from Montana. Love Montana. It's not necessarily the most traditional place to train, just because the winters are pretty harsh here. But I'm close to family. Then that's a big part of my life, and I've always wanted to. I love Colorado. Loved being there for school, but I always wanted to come back to Montana. And so, chose Bozeman, Montana, which is actually like 4.5, 5 hours from where I'm from. Which I do have family though in Bozeman still. And it's just a great community of runners, a lot of awesome places to run. And I'm so happy to be there now.
Mm-hmm. So was part of your decision to train in Montana because it's close to home and you have roots there?
For sure. Yeah. And I just feel like I'm my happiest in Montana too. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but yeah, I love being in Montana. And I just think, and being close to family is huge. My grandma and my cousins and my mom's sister, my aunt and uncle, they live in Bozeman. And so my mom and dad come up frequently and see us. So it's so nice to be surrounded by, people you love and family. Nice to be back home.
Yeah, that's cool. So that was intentional as you're deciding to embark on this professional running scene. How important is it to you to surround yourself with support systems?
Oh, it's huge. I think it was really good for me to go to the University of Colorado where obviously the team was a support system, but didn't really have a ton of support outside of the team there. But then you grow and you have this huge family that's the team and the coaches, and you have a huge support system there. But then when I decided to run professionally, I was like, okay, I want to go someplace where I am closer to family, because to me, that's just like my biggest support system. So that's why I wanted to go there.
Yeah. And what do you do when you're not running?
Yeah. So I work at a running store. So I do that. It's called the Bozeman Running Company. Great little local running store in Bozeman. So that's really fun. I kind of need to have my plate full a lot, or else I go crazy. And so I work there, 3 days a week, 3 or 4 days a week. And then it's so fun to be able to like meet more of the running community in town through that store. And then I also am a volunteer assistant coach, like I said earlier. So I go to practice 6 days a week and run with everybody, and also am able to just hopefully lend a helping hand when I can, if anyone has questions from the team or anything. So, other than that, hang out with my boyfriend and my little dog. So
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very full life. I love that. You're coaching, you're working at the store, you're training, which is huge. It takes a lot of energy to like train, but also recover and do all the little things. So I'm sure you have a very, very full life. Now, I read that you have some interesting like hobbies that you've grown up with and things that you like to do. Would you mind sharing with our audience about those?
Yeah. So, well, like my first one is my dad builds wooden canoes. So we've always been kind of a big water people. So I love kayaking and, stand-up paddleboarding and all that kind of stuff. So, I and my boyfriend just got a raft. So we've been learning, to do the rafting. And there's quite a bit of rivers in Montana. So I spend in the summer a lot of time on the rivers. And then I also, love to cross-country ski and snowboard. So we like to do that in the winter, which I think is kind of great I know like a lot of runners don't like to do those things, but I think it's good to work on, I know, all those little muscles and stuff, and also just do things outside of running. So I notice if I'm just, focused on running, it becomes a little bit less fun. So if you have all this other stuff going on too, it's great.
Was there ever a time that you were super hyper focused on running and you lost some of that balance?
Yeah, definitely college. I mean, because in college you're not really supposed to do any of those things. And I mean, when I would go home, sorry, Mark and Heather, sneak some snowboarding in. Yeah, so in college, I still loved it. I had a lot of fun doing it, but it definitely sometimes seemed a little bit more like a job than something I love to do. So I've noticed in this last year that I've really started to just like love it again. And I always, did love it, but this is like a much more passionate love for it now that I have, now that I'm able to like, I don't know, I think it's just, I have a little bit more freedom and like when I do it, where I do it. And that's been super helpful.
Yeah. It sounds like that you enjoy doing different kinds of things, which correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of makes sense with the road racing circuit because they're all different distances.
Yeah.
Would you tell me about your journey with the road racing circuit? I know you were 4th in the 15K and then you were 2nd at the 20K. And then you were 1st at the 25K. So you've had quite the progression, and like right off the bat, you were right in the mix and they're in it. So would you talk us through a little bit of that road racing circuit?
Yeah, I mean, I love road racing. I've always loved it. I used to do all the fun runs and stuff when I was young. So I was really excited to graduate college and go right onto the roads. And so yeah, I guess my first fall as a pro, it was kind of weird because it was last year and there wasn't a ton of, events going on. So I was super excited for that 15K to happen because it was the first normal race that we've had in a while, with a lot of people there and just like the whole community running and also the pros running too. So that it was super fun. It definitely the confidence that you have to build through the road racing scene is something you kind of have to work on. So I guess you can kind of see that in the 4th, 2nd, 1st. And so yeah, but that first one was just like great kind of road rust buster, if I can call it that. And just so fun to be able to like really put yourself in there with all those ladies who've been doing it for so long. And then yeah, the 20K, I was a little bit nervous for actually because it was really humid and hot and I don't always do super well in humidity. But it was great because I just put myself in it, and that was kind of a breakthrough race for me because I don't always finish super well. I feel like I don't always have a great finish line. And that one was good because I was able to kind of kick it in the last mile and rally where I'd kind of fallen off Emily Durgan, who was 2nd, and ended up passing her in like the last half mile. So I think that was kind of a breakthrough. And then coming off that, I was like, hey, I know I can tangle with all these ladies. And it's also just so fun to race with them and coming into the 25K. So I was like, well, I'll give it my all. I didn't mean to break away when I did, but it happened.
Yeah, it happened. And didn't you get a half marathon PR within the 25K?
Yeah, I got a minute and like 10 seconds.
Holy cow. That's awesome. And then it qualified
really
you for, And did it qualify you for the world championships? Is that how it works?
It did. Yeah, they came and asked me after. So fingers crossed it happens. We'll see. I don't know. That's in March, I think. So that's really exciting too. I was like, oh, I'll take any opportunity I can get to, race in a world championship. So
yeah, congrats. You'll get to wear all the USA gear.
I know. Yeah, it'll be awesome.
So exciting. I hear the box is pretty epic, the box of stuff.
I know. I'm excited. So
that'd be super cool. Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
So I kind of want to hop back to when you were saying that there were times like in college where it became a little like hyper focused. And was that when it blossomed the idea like to create this life surrounding running rather than having running be your life? Or like you're doing it so well, was there a point that you had a revelation, or did it come naturally to you to create this thriving life for yourself?
I always knew that I kind of wanted to, like, the college team is awesome. I love University of Colorado, love the coaches team, everything. But it is pretty strict, which, it has to be in college. And so I definitely knew that I was doing well there and it was great, but I definitely knew that after college, to go where I wanted to go and accomplish things I wanted to accomplish as a professional runner, that I would definitely need some more freedom. And so, during that, last year or so at college, I kind of had the opportunity to think about like where would be the best place to get that freedom, and that, I don't know, it just makes me feel a little bit happier when I can kind of do what I want to do. And Montana was definitely the place for that. And so it kind of meant not being on a professional team, which that can sometimes be hard just because I'm kind of solo for some of the year. But I was like, oh, I'd rather have some freedom with what I do than be kind of stuck in like a schedule with the team. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it takes a lot of maturity to be able to know that about yourself and to take the leap, because it is, like you said, like training with the professional group, you're able to find some training partners at the university, but that's not always going to be matched up. It's not going to line up. You're going to be doing different racing seasons. You're going to be doing different workouts, I'm guessing. So how do you manage all of that? Does it bring you angst, or are you like, just, cool with it? Like, how does that play in your mind and your being?
Yeah, I mean, definitely this last year has brought some ups and downs, because I don't think I quite realized how much I loved my teammates and how much I was so used to training with them at University of Colorado. I was kind of a solo trainer in high school, so I kind of thought, oh, I'll just hop right back into that. No, I was definitely missing all those teammates and all those, female training partners. I don't have a lot of female training partners now in Montana. And I definitely didn't take, I didn't realize how amazing that was to have that at University of Colorado. So that has been a little bit of, getting used to that, adjusting to that. But I feel like just recently in the last 3 to 4 months, I've really been adjusting to it and kind of finding my stride with, training, where it's like I'm able to train with a lot of the men's cross country team, which is awesome. And then when they roll into track season, I can train with them too at Montana State. But then there's also, times like pretty soon coming up in like a month, I'll be kind of solo. So those are definitely harder times for me in the training. But I think it's really good because it works on, some tough mental skills. So I don't necessarily always hit my workouts during that time, to my best ability, but I feel like I really work my brain, which is good.
That is such an amazing perspective. So your challenges, you're turning those into opportunities to get better at something. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that a lot. Okay. So you talked about how you were learning how to train on your own and getting through some of that mental toughness. Can you think of any other lessons that you've learned based on any of your running experiences?
Yeah, I mean, just that one's been huge for me. Just like kind of that mental toughness and learning to, run on your own, but also learning to run with people. And I also just recently, I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I feel like this is more about like racing, but I don't know if it's with age I've learned it or just, I don't know. But I used to kind of feel like I always had to at races have like, oh, like someone I'm running for, like, oh, I have to have a coach there because I'm going to run for my coach or like run for my teammates. And I think it's a little bit more important in college, when you have teammates. But I've kind of started to find that like love for it so much that I'm able to like run for myself, if that makes sense, which I think is huge, because I used to go into races, and if I didn't have a coach there, I'd be like, oh, I can't run very fast because they're not here. And so now it's been great going to all these races kind of solo. I have an awesome coach back in Montana, but I am learning to kind of run for myself, which I think is just like really important for these races.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find there's like some freedom in that to feel like, I'm the person who cares the very most about my performance today?
Yeah, it's huge. I think, I don't know. It just definitely like you can push yourself and it's like, oh, this is like for me, like I want to do well for me. And obviously all those people who support me. but it definitely is great knowing that you can like dig deep for yourself. Cause I definitely struggled with that in college and wasn't able to do that. Where I would see like other teammates be able to do that. And I just like wasn't sure how to get there. And it just seems like it's just kind of happened over the last couple of races. So that's great.
It's such an abstract thing. Would you kind of break it down a little bit for us? Like, what does that mean to you? Is there like a time that you can think of in a race where you didn't have coaches there and you felt something? Like, was that discouragement? Was that just slowing down because you didn't have someone yelling, your splits, or what does that look like? And how does that manifest in your races?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely it would always manifest kind of when it got hard, towards that last like third of the race, last third, fourth of the race. And those were times when like, if I didn't have a coach there, I would do fine, but I wouldn't necessarily like pick it up, or I wouldn't, go with that pack. And it usually would happen where there was like a pack and I would kind of fall off the pack and then the pack would go. And I wouldn't go with them and I wouldn't catch them either. So that was when I noticed it got really hard. And so now I notice, now that I'm able to kind of like run for me and like run for the love of the sport of doing it, running, I'm able to like make sure those gaps don't happen and kind of go with the pack. And then also in that last like, quarter of the race, I can like really push it and give it everything I have, even without a coach there. So that's been huge.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking of that quote, dance like no one's watching or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like run like no one's watching.
Yeah.
Like you can find that joy, and like there's like something special about being able to do it yourself and to love it and do it, even if like there's a stretch where there's no fans cheering. You're just like you with your breath and your efforts, digging deep, getting after it. Okay, that's some really good imagery there. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling.
Oh yeah.
I've had like similar struggles. I feel, wanting there to be a person that cares about it and can tell me exactly what they want from me in that moment, and then, finding that freedom, saying, no, this is like, it's me in this moment and I want it really bad. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very cool. Okay. So this is a deep one. This is a heavy hitter. What do you want from your running career? What do you want it to look like?
I mean, obviously I want to, physically want to be able to push my body and, get from it the best that I can do. And in the end, I want to like, end on a note where I'm like, okay, I did everything I could body wise, but I also really want to kind of like spread positivity in the sport and kind of bring, help younger people too. I love being able, that's why, in with my volunteer assistant coaching, like I love being able to like bring things I've learned, because I've definitely I'm not perfect. I've grown a lot in this whole running thing. And I definitely feel like I can try to offer people support and just be like someone that they can bounce ideas off of. Just because I feel like I've been able to go through a lot, even though I'm not old or anything, but I feel like I've gone through quite a bit, even in the short time I've been running. So I definitely just want to like kind of go out of the sport, leaving it a little bit better than when I came into it. So, and kind of like promote, body positivity and all that kind of stuff too. I think that's huge because I've been kind of through all that stuff too. So just try to help people whenever I can that also love this sport. So yeah.
Well, you're doing that right now with our audience. So we all thank you for spreading your positivity. You're using your platform, your win to, talk with us and to connect with us. So we really appreciate that. Now, wrapping up the topic, thinking about building a thriving life, what things would you tell our audience make up some of the pillars, so to speak, of having a life that is sustainable, in the sport of running? Because there are a lot of people that are listening to our show who are very invested in their running, and it's hard to manage all of it, really, especially because running is very taxing. So how do you do it, Mckenna?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I like to run every day, but there also you have to have other things in your life that you love to do, because, you're going to have times when you're injured, and you're going to have times when you can't run. And so I've wanted to make sure in my life that obviously I love running. I'm very passionate about it, but it's not the only thing in my life. And so family's huge, which is why I moved back to Montana. I have great support system in that family. I've also found a great support system in the Montana State University. So I think surrounding yourself with like a really good support system is awesome, because even when you don't have running, you have people you can go hang out with, you have people you can talk to. So that's really big. And I also think, finding some hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies outside of running. So that has been huge for me too. Just being able to like go ski or go rafting or go swimming. And I have a little dog who I love. So I go hang out with her a lot. And so I think kind of making your life pretty well-rounded. And then also running every day when you can is like huge. So I think that also makes you appreciate when you do get to run is when, when you're busy doing other things and you get that run in, you're like, oh, I love doing this. So I think, yeah, just kind of having like a well-rounded life and having people you love and things that you love to do along with running is great.
Golden advice there, Mckenna. We appreciate it. Well, we'll make sure we keep our audience updated because there's, I'm sure, going to be many things to update them on. There's a couple more races in the road racing circuit, the half, correct? And then is there a 5K or what are the last two? 5K I think is in like a week and a half. I'm not doing that one, but I am going to do that. The half marathon is the last one, I think. So yeah. Cool. Well, you're doing awesome in the standings. I think you're second in the standings right now, which is awesome. Our audience, we do a World of Running segment every week. So we talk about the road racing circuit. So a lot of them understand, that it's scored all together as well, which is pretty neat. So you're rocking it.
Thank you. I know us three are pretty close. Yeah.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much, Mckenna, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks to Mckenna, who took a lot of time out of her busy day when she was even traveling. I thought it was amazing how she kept her focus, even though that baby was crying in the background. She's a master of pulling herself together and obviously doing some pretty high pressure things. I mean, not that our podcast is a high pressure thing, but it's great to see an example of her focus that way. Well, thanks again to Mckenna for sharing with us how we need to have some of these other hobbies and things in life to help us when running seems to be overwhelming. And I think it was really important for her to share the difference between how she had this high pressure situation in college to moving on to the pro life where she built the life that she wanted for her pro career. And that's kind of what led her into the place she is today. Build a life that matters. Oh wait, that's a different thing. Well, excellent. And thank you, Mckenna, for sharing. Now let's go ahead and jump into the world of running. Well, as we have been sharing lately at the beginning of the world of running, because so many of our athletes are running races and doing a fine job at that. Congrats to all the AtoZ runners who competed this past weekend. And a couple of quick notes for you all. Jacob and Pete both ran in the Monumental Marathon and both notched substantial marathon personal best times, like in the quantity of minutes, several of them for each, which is great. Congrats to you both. Mark ran in NYC as well, and certainly there are lots of positive things to say about that on the whole. So we've got more to share right now on the New York City Marathon. Absolutely. Congrats to all of you who raced this weekend as well. Our listeners, we love to hear you guys doing great things on the roads as well. And we're going to start with NYC Marathon and the news that happened there. The top results for women. Perez Chepchirchir of Kenya ran 2:22:39, and she was the Tokyo Olympic Marathon champion, if you remember. And the notable thing about this is that it's been since Frank Shorter ran the marathon and then came back to run a fall marathon that someone's won a major marathon coming off of an Olympic win. Interesting. Yeah. I have a note about that, so I wanted to pull it up. Kipchoge didn't do that? No, he hasn't done that. Huh. I know. Very interesting. Oh, here it is. Frank Shorter, he was the last man to do it, and he won the Olympics in 1972. So, yeah. In Japan. Nice. All right. So, that's quite the accomplishment, because it's not easy to do. As you all know, marathons in general are hard to string together, but the big high of an Olympic championship is a tough thing to come back from quickly. So, yeah. And this is how it happened. It came down to a kick, as sometimes these things do, which Zach was always like, this is so brutal. And if you run a marathon, like having to kick at the end of a marathon, it can be impossible for most of us. But those who it's possible for still don't want to have to do that. It's a crazy thing. So it came down to a kick with Viola Cheptu-Lagat, and this is Bernard Lagat's sister.
Oh,
so
nice. Excellent.
Yeah, and you may have heard of her before because she's an Olympian. She ran in the 2016 1500 meter run, and now she's moved up to the marathon distance, which is fabulous, and she did a great job doing it, obviously. And then we want to mention that Molly Seidel got the new American course record in NYC with a time of 2:24:42. So that's a new American course record, but it's also her personal best time.
Nice.
So
and
she's
fourth place in New York.
Fourth place in New York. You got to kind of look at her track record and say she's 4 for 4.
Oh, you mean her
Good
road racing record?
Marathons. Like, that's unusual to have 4 good marathons in a row.
It's not bad at all. And everyone's talking about Molly Seidel. What's the future of American women marathoning, and Molly Seidel's in that conversation all around the board, which is it's an exciting thing.
It really is. And then we had 5 American women in the top 10, which is also unique. We had Kellen Taylor, 6th place in a time of 2:26:10, Laura Thweet, and then Stephanie Bruce in 10th place. So.
But don't skip Annie Frisbee.
Oh,
in
yeah.
7th
I had her
place
highlighted,
on
actually.
a 3-minute PR.
In the half marathon. And this was her debut in the full marathon.
Yep.
So she went through half marathon 3 minutes faster than her previous half marathon PR set in 2020. So
That's really something. I'm always amazed when people do stuff like this.
I know. And it was like, granted, it was one of her weaker PRs, but still, that's not weak. Like running a 1:15 and then running a, 1:13 is
Isn't
not
that
weak.
something?
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
So Molly ran over a minute faster than any American woman ever in NYC. Kara Goucher had the previous American course record in a time of 2:25:53 from 2008. And then Annie Frisbee, like we just mentioned, she ran the 4th fastest marathon debut for American women in the marathon distance. That is amazing.
It's
and
really something saying that 2:26 is only the 4th. There's that many women have run 2:26 or faster for their first marathon.
This is a pretty impressive list to be part of. This is a cool thing. Fun fact about Frisbee: she never made an NCAA championship on the track. And now here she is, 4th fastest debut for an American woman.
And apparently, according to Let's Run, her goal was to run under 2:35.
So I'd say she safely did that.
Yeah, but
9 minutes under that goal.
That's really something.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now talking about the men's results, and of course this one we had hyped it briefly ourselves, just talking about how Kenenisa Bekele, who is certainly capable of world record performance in the marathon recently, and Kibiwat Candy, who holds the world record in the half marathon. These are names where it's like it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And then there was also Olympic silver medalist Abdi Nagy. Also in the race, and so like big names, big performance things, and with all of that, the winner of the race was a less talked about name. So it's always exciting when you get a kind of like an underdog story, if you will. Albert Career of Kenya took the win.
And he was runner-up in 2019.
No one's saying he's not a good marathoner. It's just he wasn't the one that everyone kept saying, Kibiwat Candy marathon debut, Kenenisa Bekele.
2nd fastest marathon time of all.
Yeah, right.
Kenenisa Bekele. So, and then, of course, Kibiwat Candy, who did actually hang in the race for quite a long time. He was there until mile 20.
Final 10K. It's always the final 10K. Hey, listen, we talk about this all the time. In marathon racing, you're not racing until you can make it to the final 10K. And you've got to make it to the final 10K ready to start racing. And if you can't handle that, you're never going to win these kinds of races. This is exactly what these guys do.
Yeah.
And so that's incredible stuff. Well, so what was most notable throughout is, if you will, the legendary names had faded fairly far back after what was a pretty decent start to the race. No one was trying to set world records in the first half, but if you have ever run New York, and Mark let us know after his New York marathon this weekend, those hills in the second half are tough. It's just, second half marathon, hills, Boston, New York.
And all the
like
bridges, too.
Yeah, bridges, which are basically
hill.
hills. So that doesn't make anything easier. And so the second half was, in fact, a bit slower for many of these gentlemen. But it ended up being an interesting story on the American side as well. Yeah. Because it was Elkanah Kibet who was the first finisher for the American men, in 4th place in a PR time. That's a 6-year-old PR that he set back in 2015. So he ran 2:11:15, which is a 16-second personal best for him at age 38, after what many had considered to be a kind of slow fade out of excellence in the sport, where he just was struggling for a bit. He lost his program contract because he was running with the Army program, the WCAP, and that program has term limits. So you can only serve with the program for a certain period of time, and you have to reapply. Well, thankfully, they did allow him back into the program when he reapplied. But there's a big question as to, what does he have left or capable? And this was just a great
Never doubt people. Never doubt a runner. Never doubt a strong-willed runner.
So anytime someone can run a marathon PR in New York, when their previous PR was Chicago, when they're 38 years old, is substantial. So great race by Elkanah Kebet of the USA. And then we wanted to also note a couple of other Americans here. Certainly, Ben True is one that many have talked about because this was his marathon debut.
I didn't realize it was his debut. I feel like he's always in the conversation, so it kind of surprised me to find out that he was debuting at New York in the marathon distance. That was a surprise to me.
Ben True is always there in U.S. and Olympic trials championships in the 5,000, 10,000 on the track. And so here he's making his marathon debut. And after the race, when being interviewed about this, so he finished in 7th place. He ran 2:12:53 for his first ever marathon. That's great. All very excellent. But after the race, they're talking to him and he's like, I should have gone faster.
Yeah.
Because basically it was about 5 miles in when he clearly made the choice that he was not going to try to hang with that lead pack. And then afterward, he regretted it. And he's like, I felt way too good at the end.
Fun fact, he had the fastest 5K split of anyone in the race, from 35K to 40K.
Yeah, he was coming out strong.
Which was one of the hilliest sections, and that was he ran it in 15:38.
Yeah, and that's no surprise because he was feeling good.
Coming on hard at the end.
Strong. He made up 30 seconds on Kenenisa Bekele, the Kenenisa Bekele, who finished in 6th. Bekele beat him by 1 second. He made up 30 seconds on Bekele in the last 2K. That's amazing.
Now, we'd be remiss not to mention the third American in the field, which was Nathan Martin, a previous podcast guest.
Well done,
and
Nathan.
Someone we know personally, so it's really exciting to be a fan of him as well as a friend. He ran a time of 2:12:57. Very impressive. Over Kibiwat Candy, who came in 9th. So Nate Martin was in 8th. Kibiwat Candy was in 9th.
It's not a bad thing to say things like, I beat the half marathon world record holder. No big deal.
Yeah.
So 8th in the New York Marathon. That's great. This is Nate Martin's best showing at a world stage race. And so that's got to feel great for him. Very exciting. And I have to say, so he's run 2:11:0 from the Marathon Project. If you recall that what's the right word? That contrived race that was just, they put every piece together in the best possible race to make it the fastest possible, and it's just awesome when you can run and things like that. And so he showed up that day, ran 2:11 and change. I have to say that this 2:12:50 something is by far a better performance than that 2:11 in terms of just if you compare 1-to-1 in terms of marathon experiences, because the course is nasty compared to that Marathon Project course. Just very challenging course in comparison. Also, to show up big on a world stage race in these majors is not easy to do. There's lots of pressure. There's lots more going into it. It's just not the most ideal toned experience you can have for a lot of these athletes.
It's about racing. It's not about getting a fast time. It's about racing. And for him to race against the best in the world and be top 10,
so good.
Snap.
So good.
And then Jared Ward was 10th. That guy, I tell you what, he had been struggling with some health issues and still came out and ran a top 10 performance.
Thyroid issues, which is a small. It's no small thing to have to overcome as a runner, and he's wanting to try to do so without medication, which makes it tough.
Yeah. He did an awesome job. So excellence by Jared Ward, as always.
So we've got a link to Let's Run's coverage of this, and in large part because you definitely should check it out. They have all of these clips where they got to talk to a few of these runners after the race, and there's all sorts of great reflections and insights and just little tidbits of knowledge that we just can't share all of it right here, but you should check those out if you want to just hear more about the story behind each of these athletes' experience. Not every single one of them, but certainly many of them.
And you can find that at AtoZrunning in our blog post associated with this podcast episode.
Awesome. All right. So number 2, Andy, what happened
not all.
in the USATF 5K Road Championships?
So preluding the New York City Marathon was the USATF 5K Road Racing Championships. again, on the streets of New York City. The women's event was taken by two-time NCAA champion Winnie Colati, and she smashed the event record.
No doubt about that.
Absolutely incredible, 15:18, and she was beating Molly Huddle's previous event best mark from 2017 by 6 seconds. And that's not all. She beat the rest of the field in this event by a whopping 29 seconds.
Okay.
Not
too shabby.
Yeah.
So if you recall, Colati also broke Molly Huddle's 10K road record as well not too long ago, with her pro road debut. So like she's just kind of entering the scene now in terms of road stuff, and she's clearly entering it by storm.
A force to be reckoned with for sure. So second place was Grace Barnett, and then third place was last week's A to Z Running podcast guest Erica Kemp.
All right.
And this is coming off her for 25K. So we talked about versatility. We talked about running different distances in that episode. You're going to definitely want to listen to it. I'll link to it, or you could just search. That would work out fine as well. But this is showing you just how versatile this woman can be, going from 25K to 5K and on the podium.
Well, and so this is now in the last 5 U.S. road championships. This is Erica Kemp's worst finish, third. She's been second and first,
which is not bad.
So yeah, so she's just standing on the steps every time she races.
Standing on the steps, I love that.
That's great.
I like
well
that.
Done.
And then fourth place was previous podcast guest of this season, Natasha Rogers. So I'll link to her episode as well. But that was a great finish by Natasha.
So Andy, what you're saying is we need to be talking to Winnie Colati and Grace Barnett, because we haven't talked to them yet on the show.
Yeah, that's true.
So come on in and join us when you are listening. All right, how about it for the men?
The men's results. So you probably saw some headlines about Centro and Chalimo coming in as the top two to be watching and who's going to win between the two of them. Well, that's not who the race ended up being all about.
That's what always happens. This is what always happens. Everyone's like, it's the duel of these two, and then they don't even,
it's because
podium.
we have such depth, in these races sometimes, where you see, like, you can have many Olympians be part of events like this, and you don't really know who's going to have the best day, because it all depends on how their season is unfolding, their health, where they're at exactly. So think about Paul Chalimo. You know him. He's only going to be ready when when it's ready to be, to go.
Well, okay then.
I'm not saying he can't be competitive in these early races. He definitely can. But so let's talk about how it played out. Centro was leading until about 100 meters to go when Drew Hunter passed him.
All right. The Tin Man guy, the Adidas guy.
Well, he's not Tin Man anymore.
Yeah, was until that whole thing, which we don't need to talk about here.
No.
But so Drew Hunter was like super high school phenom, breaking lots of records and such, and didn't spend the time in college as many runners do. Instead, opted for an early pro career.
Yeah. And he had some injury that he struggled with. He had a great indoor season where he opened, but now he's back on the scene with this first outdoor road racing title, winning the 5K in 13:53. And this is a sprint finish.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 5K, so you more expect a sprint finish at the end of a 5K with Matthew Centrowitz in second, and then Sydney Guedabade within the same second as Centro.
That's awesome. So it's very exciting, and we like exciting races. Good stuff. Well, we got links to more if you want to find out more for that championship as well. Let's talk about number 3 then on the list, and it's about Molly Seidel. So, as it were, we've been talking a lot about her in the running world scene right now, for good reason. She's been performing very well. Well, this article from Podium Runners, Brian Metzler, was a particularly interesting one to us, and so we wanted to share a little bit more about it. So, we'll post the link on Podium Runner recently, just before the New York Marathon. So it was kind of like a prelude to that. But what it is it's specifically focusing on her training shift as she went into marathon-focused training. One of the things that marked Molly Seidel's career prior to her marathoning was she often struggled with injury.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily like constant, but more than her fair share. And so as a consequence, when she started thinking about marathoning, and her new coach was basically trying to identify what are the changes that need to happen, one of the things is what would it take to be healthy longer, for longer stints, fewer injuries. And one of the changes that I found very interesting, and it makes perfect sense, and you'll know why, as soon as I say this, that I think it makes sense because
Our
these are things that we talk
philosophy
about
of
a lot. So he immediately said we need more load, more volume at lower intensity. Need to run easier for longer. And that's not to suggest that that's what everybody needs to do if they're struggling with injury. But there's this general sense in the running community that is completely wrong, which is that I'm getting hurt, so I need to run less. And on almost every case, the volume is rarely the single source.
Yeah,
of
because
these
there's
concerns.
overuse injuries.
It can be, yes.
Zach, so that's fair.
Yes, absolutely. But an overuse injury is not the same thing as I have injury problems. You have to try to identify what is the right source of the problem here. And for many runners, it's got
intensity.
More to do with how hard I'm running and how often. And this really, so I don't know if his name's Green, if Seidel's coach is directly influenced by Lydiard consciously, but clearly he is influenced by Lydiard because this is something that for decades Lydiard's constantly harping about during his highest years of exposure in the global running scene, which is just that people are running too hard too often. They need to be running easier. That's not necessarily easy all the time kind of thing, but the kinds of workouts and the kinds of approaches to day-to-day running need to be, well, as Barry McGee always says, we train, we don't strain. That comes directly from Lydiard. Barry got that from Lydiard. So he would say that to his athletes every day. Train, don't strain.
So why do we love this article so much? Because we nod our heads along because our training philosophies align with this article and what Molly is doing right now.
But it's very, very important for all of us to think about what are the kinds of things that runners are doing to try to reach a next level in the sport, right? And one of the considerations here is, are the types of workouts and the way I am approaching effort in my runs, are they the best path to success? And maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but that's one of the areas that you tend to see people make some slight modifications and find great benefit.
Yeah, and I recently posted a quote by Molly, and I will link to that as well because the link is about going towards the effort versus the pace mentality, which we bring up and we will continue to bring up because training your body to know an effort and to focus on the approaches of this race and not be tied to some external output based thing and only focusing on the things that we can control and input on race day can help liberate us and allow us to run our best.
And it all comes back to what's the goal? What is it that we are trying to accomplish in the thing that we do in running? And what's the path then best to achieve that?
Yeah.
So with all of that, there's plenty more going on, but we're going to wrap it up here for now and join us again next time for more from the world of running.
Thanks for joining us. We know that you could put a lot of podcasts in your ear and you choose us, and we don't take that for granted. So we love that you're part of the A to Z running community. We love all the feedback that you give us, including an article that we recently published about toast. Yes.
Toast.
Yeah, toast.
Stop.
How many of you guys know that song?
Nobody knows that song.
Yes, they do.
Nope.
It's funny. Okay. All that to say, we appreciate your feedback in providing more interest in topics that matter to you, including things that we eat that help us fuel better, thrive better as runners. That's what this is all about. We want to have healthy, thriving lives as runners.
And it's all about food.
It's not. As much as runners want to say that it's all about food, it is not. But we do love it and we need it, and it's great to find ways to fuel ourselves well, but also enjoy food too. So there's a lot of ways you can fix toast, and you can find that at AtoZrunning.com. There's a lot of articles at AtoZrunning.com, so go ahead, check it out. Scroll through a few. You'll find more episodes as well if you've missed some A to Z Running podcast episodes. But it's a great place for us to put all of our information, inspiration, and then of course we love that you're part of this community. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.